DJ and PK. Got a question up on our Facebook page. Former five-star quarterback recruit, Sam Huard, is transferring to Utah, and he said, quote, Utah has an unbelievable culture, close quote. What makes it so unbelievable? Russell denies the premise. I don't believe it. And then there's just a lot of Cougar fans or maybe Aggie fans, they're just cracking. The arrogance that flows on that campus, that's what makes it unbelievable. Jimmy. Their ability to believe that they are a gift to college football and that everyone in the state should love and worship them. Shane. Shane has a Dodger avatar. Should we assume that he's a Cougar fan who moved up from Southern California and still loves his Los Angeles Dodgers?
Logical assumption? Now,
there were a few people who took this seriously and liked the premise. Brooks says all the 2- and 3-star talent that comes into the program and leaves the program going into the NFL. All the 9, 10, and 11-win seasons over the past decade. 2 conference championships out of the last 3 years. That starts the unbelievable culture to begin with.
I don't think that does start the unbelievable culture.
Neither does Steve. Steve says, Cougar fan here. Utah's culture is from Coach Witt. He is so consistent, and for the large part, so is his staff.
Right.
And there it is. Steve lays it out for us.
I think that's the foundation. Steve, I think, is right on there. That's the foundation.
And then what Brooks says builds off of that.
And then, for sure, they are outstanding at identify and develop. Just the other day, I think this week, Kyle was on. They have it's called Full Ride. It's on the Sirius radio, and it's Neuheisel, right? And so they've known they're in the coaching business. Neuheisel's out, but they're roughly the same age. I think maybe a year or two apart.
They've known each other and crossed paths for a long time.
Many times, yeah, for sure. And then they were joking about how they'll see each other when they go to Pebble Beach to play.
Okay, rich
Bleep
guys.
Them.
What was Pebble when your wife ducked in and asked and it was like, okay, thanks, see you, bye?
What's your twilight? What's your regular rate? And this was 10 years ago. $7.50. What's your twilight rate? $7.50. Bye. And so Neuheisel's talking to him about it, and it's true, man. You know, where do you get these guys? How do you find them? And Kyle went on, and we all know what the formula is. To be able to do it is not that easy. And he said you have to be able to look at someone and project them 2-3 years down the road, which they do. That's the identify and then develop. The 2 staples, identify, develop. I just hammer it over and over again because it's the truth. And so they're able to do that. And he has the ability to project 2-3 years down the road, which oftentimes doesn't even come close to including the position that they played. It may not even be the side of the ball in which they played the predominant. But I think that the family on 3 spiel is hokey, and I've joked with the NIL, family money on 3, because that's probably what it is. These businesses that keep it in the family, and they're the ones with the big money, and they're the ones going hard on the collective spiel, and good for them. They're doing what they can to help out the team. But you've got a man who, in this interview, and I listened to it, and nothing he said was new to us. And
it's all new to the national audience. Well, maybe. It's
some
right.
is. It's maybe reaffirming. It's not like he's on every week.
Right.
But
we would have been able to predict the answer.
And he's a good interview. He's personable that way. And, he's going on about my kids. I got 4 of them. They all went to the same grade school. They all went to the same middle school. They all went to the same high school. Blah, blah, blah. And in this business, that just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen. They move all the time. That's almost like a military situation. And he's been there for 30-plus years now. And so he's able to develop that. And when Huard says this, and I saw what he did 24/7 on the interview, Sam Huard, who is committed to play quarterback as a transfer for the Utes. When he talks about that, I think that's what he's seeing, and that's what he's saying. And it resonates with me because I've seen it. I've seen it, the development there. And then they come back. And it's a smaller place, so you don't get lost. But at the same time, it's not too small. It's big enough here. And Kyle's talking about, I very rarely get calls at 2 a.m. And so you have to identify the right kind of kid. And they're going to have a problem or two. Everybody does. There's no doubt about it. And they don't have the knucklehead. So all that stuff in there feeds off and in the hokey saying, all in the way, or all in, or all in the way, or you adapt to us, we don't adapt to you, all that stuff. It's not any one thing, but it's everything at the same time. And Huard obviously can rely on his brothers, his dad and his uncle. And his dad is, at least he was, the radio guy for the Huskies. His Uncle Brock does Fox, right? And so he has access to people all over the place. So I think those two, and his other uncle is an assistant on Utah SC staff. So football is born and bred in that family.
It's Manning light.
And
they're connected.
Yeah, they weren't as good.
Right, they weren't as good.
But they were still really good.
But they're still really good, and they're connected.
And they can point him in that direction. Right. And they knew full well that the quarterback situation, you got 25-year-old Cam on his last leg, and he's going to be done this year. He cannot petition anything else, whatever. Hopefully it's a smash season, but he's out. And then the job becomes wide open. And he can win the number 2 job this year because they have no one who was on scholarship who's taken a snap in a game. Now, he played a little bit as a Washington Husky, and then Penix comes in, and he goes down, drops down, and goes to San Luis Obispo and plays for Cal Poly. And at least he's out on the field. It's not high-level competition. But I think that was part of the plan, that he wasn't necessarily going to stay there forever. And so he checks that out, sees it, and the situation, if they were stacked, if they had a redshirt freshman who had played and looked really good.
Maybe he goes somewhere else.
Yeah, but you combine there's an opening there. There's not to say he will win it, but there's an opening there. And he sees that, and then the homey atmosphere of just what they got, and they hang out. I was up there a couple of weeks ago on draft Friday, and you walk through, and they're all there, and they recognize you, and they talk to you, and it's a little different there. I will say that. And it stems from Kyle. He's a folksy kind of guy. And even if, I don't think he lets a lot of people in his life, but if you do, you're in for good, and I could tell you personal stories that I won't tell you. As recently as 2 weeks ago. Stuff that he's doing, and I don't want to get into it, but just stuff that he's doing. But he's so good with the interviews, he makes you think like, hey, man, this guy's a real good dude. And so you go on there, and that's what they got. And I don't want to be a PR firm for the team or any of that stuff, but I got to tell it like I see it, and that's how I see it. So when Huard says that, I can see where he's coming from.
All that stuff is true, but I think, don't you think that the fact that guys largely feel like they're developing there, they're getting better, and they're going to reach their individual goals, and the fact that the team wins so much and they're reaching team goals, that just makes happier people, and so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, they're winning, and guys are reaching goals because the staff has been in place. Kyle has been in place for a long time. They came up with a plan of how they wanted to do things, and they stick to that plan. Kyle's up there saying and doing a lot of the same stuff he was doing 5 years ago. Not everything, because the transfer portal and the NILs impacted them too. And if anything, There are people up there who think NIL has made it harder to sustain that culture. But it's made it harder on everybody. So comparatively, for some kid who's looking to transfer, maybe that doesn't really matter, even if you're up there and it doesn't feel like it felt 10 years ago.
Well, I don't know what it feels like it felt 10 years ago. So I don't know that that's anything different. Is it harder there NIL-wise? I can't answer that. I don't know. I know they're trying to combat it, but they're not. I don't think it's going to be like BYU. They're not going to pay you the most money.
Right.
And if you're looking for, if
you're always in danger of losing a guy to the SEC, and maybe he goes or maybe he doesn't go, and they've had both happen.
Yeah.
But that's always going to be there.
And then you have to combat it, and you don't get any benefits for who you lost. You have to have who you replaced them with. That's how you're going to win ball games, and they should be fine as far as winning games. I don't know if they're going to win the conference or any of that stuff. It's like with SC. They should be fine. I'm not going to predict them to win the conference. Now, if you want to predict Utah to win the conference, that's fine because the conference isn't nearly as tough as the Big Ten. So it's easier to pick the Utes to win the Big Ten versus SC, or Big 12 versus SC winning the Big Ten right now. That could change 3-4 years from now. Maybe it gets worse. Who knows? But what they've got going here, it works for them. And when Huard says this, I don't think he's blowing smoke. I think now that doesn't mean everything is rosy because they've got guys who leave and they don't like it there, and a lot of it they don't like it there because they're not playing.
You're not reaching your individual goals, right?
Mostly, yes. I mean, and Nate Johnson and a Jaquindon Jackson are head scratchers. But,
well, I look at Jaquindon going to the SEC and think the Utes don't have enough NIL money.
Then Arkansas? I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know.
It does get him closer to home. And the SEC, I don't know the
why did he leave
knows.
home in the first place if he was so worried about being closer to home?
Yeah.
So
Nate Jackson playing time?
Johnson.
Nate Johnson, yes.
Yeah, but you did nothing to overwhelm us that demanded playing time in the first place. And you would have been the backup this year. You would have had an opportunity in 2 games. You would have played the Colorado game, which I could have won. Right? You would have won that game.
Yep. And then the bowl game.
They were watered down.
Yep.
Colorado was so beaten up at the time.
Yep.
They couldn't compete. Is the way it was. So you would have played that game. You would have played the bowl game. But, he made his decision, and so I don't even remember where he went to this. You need a program to figure out where these guys go, and you remember it in the moment. And it doesn't matter. He's gone now anyway. It seemed a little premature, and I know they thought for a fact that they thought it was
premature.
Yeah.
That he was on track to be a starting quarterback there one day. But,
right. But, I mean, he's not unique.
No, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Huard's on his third school.
Yeah, although he gets beat out by a first-round draft choice.
Yep.
So Cam Rising, for all his greatness, is not going to be a first-round draft choice.
Nope.
But he left, and then they got to replace him, and it's just a good thing they got going with U of U football, and it's really, it's something that I think in the moment, I wonder how much it really is appreciated. I wonder if people just sort of take it for granted, and hopefully for them, it won't be one of these things, oh, man, I really miss it when it's gone. And hopefully, Scally, when he takes over, will continue to keep rocking, basically. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't, because this guy literally has learned everything from Fred Whittingham Sr.
Through Kyle.
Yes.
Passed through the generations. Well,
Yes.
The reason he wouldn't is that we've seen, well, this isn't a reason, but it's a trend and it's a pattern, is we've seen other handoffs from one very successful coach to someone where, okay, it makes sense. I know why they're giving it to this person, and yet it doesn't work. And it's why you refuse to predict if coaches will or won't work, because until it happens, you don't really know. There's so many moving pieces to the puzzle. And other schools have made hires, and that makes sense. You can sit here as a media member, a fan, and say, I see why they did that. If I was in that school's shoes, if I was that president, if I was that AD, I'd have done that. And then it doesn't work. And so you think it'll work with Morgan. I can think it'll work with Morgan. Yacht can think it'll work with Morgan. But we all seen so much college football, you don't actually know if it works until it does. And it does sometimes. It's not impossible to pass the baton. We can go back and, pick a decade and cite some places where it worked. And then we can flip the page and cite some places where it didn't work.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in what happened in whenever. I'm interested in what's happening now and what's going forward. And Morgan has been fully indoctrinated in the Whittingham way, which is the Utah way. And so
he's been indoctrinated
he will
in
understand it as well as anyone.
We talked about this with him last time when we were up there about, I don't know, what is it, 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, is that he's been indoctrinated in that way almost as long as we've been doing the show, because he briefly did radio on our station. There was a year there. Yeah, and it was like right out of school. So we've been doing this 22 going on 23 years.
09.
Oh, was that late? I would have guessed.
Was it 05?
I would have guessed it was. It wasn't. It was before.
Well, he was a senior in the Fiesta Bowl.
Right, and it was before 07 because we left that building. I know the building
so it
was in
05.
It was right. It was right in there, and so. Yeah, he's going on almost 2 decades of this. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how many more notes he can take. Well, I guess as college football changes, there's new stuff to learn.
You don't know what do you mean?
For Kyle, the Whittingham way.
Notes. I got you.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what Kyle thinks, and he knows why Kyle thinks it.
Yeah.
Forward and backwards.
The only thing that would derail him taking over is if Kyle decides I'm not ready, and so I'm going to stay here for 3-4 more years. And Scally says the heck with that and gets offered a job.
A plausible scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle will decide when he decides. We've been sitting around talking about will he decide for 4 years, and he could have. Other coaches have, but he didn't.
I was asked recently as yesterday, when's he going to retire?
Was this someone inside the industry, or was this somebody in your neighborhood?
No. More than a fan.
Okay.
And I consistently say, I don't know.
A wise answer.
Have we talked about it? Yes.
Right.
But so what?
But even if he tells you, don't get too far out in front of it, because he reserves the right to change his mind in either direction. He could decide I'm staying and decide to go. He could decide I'm going and then decide to stay.
Yeah.
So don't get too far in front of that story.
I think he has a plan. But that plan can change.
Right.
In fact, I know he has a plan, but that plan can change. And he will announce it when he announces it. But
exactly.
Man, why not? If you're having a good time, go the Andy Reid route, man. Why not? If you got your health and you got your interest and you're ready to undertake the grueling nature of the job, fine. I could easily see him doing it 3-4 more years, and I can easily see him step aside this season.
Step aside, right?
Yeah.
How old was Stoops when he stepped aside? I mean, that was a guy who had it going and
mid-50s.
Yeah,
and he did what he wanted to do. Good for him.
Yep.
I mean, obviously it's a completely and totally individual decision. Yeah. Yet some people will do it. You got to be financially able to do it.
But head coaches in college football,
should be.
especially at the level Stoops and Kyle are at.
Right. So that should be a given. As far as that goes, and then you decide. He wants to come back next year and the year after. That wouldn't surprise me at all. He wants to say, "Hey, I'm done with it at this season." That's great. Whatever you decide, have at it and go. But that culture, and I think that culture word is overblown. But in Utah's case, I think it's real.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Stay with us. Coming up next, it's a Win Tickets Wednesday. Every Wednesday, you have a chance to win tickets to games, to concerts, to shows. And this week, we've got tickets to see Neil Young at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater, July 29th. We will give those tickets away in the next segment. Stay with us.